Hi, welcome to another edition of Legal Quilts. I know I said in this edition we would be sewing the melon part, but that's what happens when you don't read the pattern all the way through. And if you think I've read it now all the way through after finding this out, you don't know me very well. I have flipped through the entire pattern to kind of get the general concept, but reading each step already hasn't happened yet. Okay? So, having said that, we are now on the second easiest part of this entire quilt. All right, the easiest part was sewing the rings, which had a slight curve. Okay, this part is almost as easy, but it has a little twist in it. All right, this is where we're going to sew the end pieces on to some of the rings. This is where the two parts come together and they create a square. My pattern's in black and white, but you can still kind of see it. If you look, you can see the square pieces right there, okay? Now the thing is, because of where it is, okay, shows up better here. See, I do know where stuff is in the pattern, I just don't read it. See, you can see where these come together here, and here you've got the two squares. Because this is kind of the focal point of the block, you can still do this scrappy and just use any pieces you want to do the squares, that's fine. I decided to go with the same fabric for all of my squares in this block. Now, when I do another block, it's going to have a different set of squares, but this is kind of the focal piece of each block. I shouldn't have said the quilt, but if you were like doing a planned quilt and you wanted to do, like, even if it was scrappy everything else, this part would then be the focal, and you could do that. Okay, you could make the squares all the same throughout the whole quilt, and your eye would be drawn to those because they're right next to each other and they're the same pattern and they kind of stand out. So that's why I decided, at least in this block, I'm going to use this really kind of dramatic snowflake one, because again, it draws the eye in. All right, but that's it. It's a 2.5 inch square. If you've got a mini charm pack, you don't even have to cut it. You just automatically, oh look, I have a mini charm pack handy. These are my leaders and enders. I'm just running them through for leaders and enders. So I keep them all here underneath. But this is the right size, a mini charm pack. And of course, if you were doing a scrappy quilt but still wanted the focus, because they're themed, you would still have the same theme throughout, but you could use different ones. And you need, I think, yeah, you only need 48, and a mini charm pack is 40. So you'd need a pack and a fifth of a pack. So buy two mini charm packs. They're not that expensive. They run about $4 each, and then have fun with what's left over. But the advantage of using this is it's themed. They all kind of go together. Let me show you another one I got. This is one of mine from Debbie Maddie's Shishikos. See, they all kind of are the same theme. So you can get, so that would be one way to also pull your quilt together, especially if you're making a really scrappy one, is to have that nice theme on your block. So I'll stop talking now about that. I think I beat that subject to death. So what you do is, first, this is where you divide your rings into two sets of 4, okay? I don't care how you do it. I just grabbed 4 off the top and went, boom, you're set 1. The other ones are set 2. I'm knocking things all over the place here. All right? So set aside your 4 that are set 1. Grab your set 1, set aside the other ones as set 2. Cut or grab your mini charms. You need 8 of the 2.5 inch squares. Now this is the only tricky part of this, is this side here, you're going to sew them to the end of the rings. Okay, so you've got your ring, okay, with the 5 here. What you're going to do is sew on this end and this end, just one of these squares on each end. But this, as you see, is larger than 2.5 inches. Take your wedges should be 2.5 inches, just your wedge. So line it up on the bottom with the bottom of the wedge, okay? Because remember, this one has the extra 1/2 inch line, okay? This, remember, this one is going to get trimmed, so it has the 1/2 inch seam allowance. So keep that in mind when you sew this, that you don't want to line it up here because then you'll have this big gap down here, and this is just going to get trimmed anyway. So you want to line it up with your bottom of your wedge like this, okay? Here's my bottom of my wedge, okay? Bottom of my wedge, bottom of your square, and you line up that corner right there, and then just sew it, okay? Got my needle all handy. I did have it all handy, and then I knocked everything around, okay? And just sew. That's it. I took these on a recent trip. I did 2 of my blocks. I sewed 2 on the ring. I sewed 4 of these on 2 sets of on 2 rings on a trip, and I found out that yes, this is still pretty portable. Folded it up into my little travel sewing kit and threw my 4 in there, and off we went. I didn't have to bring clips or anything because I wasn't doing the melon. But again, you can still do that. And so it was portable. It was great. I'm sitting there in the hotel room that night just sewing away while watching TV. That's when I like to do my hand sewing while TV is on. I don't really have to pay attention to the TV too much. So I can concentrate on the sewing, but the sewing keeps me busy, so I can also kind of pay attention to the TV. Podcasts are another good thing because then I can look at the sewing while still listening to the podcast. So that's what you do. You just sew it up until you get to the top here of this piece. Now you're going to sew through the seam allowance a little bit so that it ended up, but you're just going to keep sewing. Remember, keep your stitches kind of small so that the fabric holds together well. I said but it's still all portable because you know me, I like projects that I can bring along on trips so I can sew, but I still don't sew in the car because of driving down the road and you hit a bump while you're trying to sew and all of a sudden you've stabbed yourself. So plus, if you're sewing something small like this, you're constantly stopping and tying off, cutting thread. You've got little bits of thread running around everywhere, and you don't want all those in the interior of your car everywhere. So I don't sew in the car. And yeah, you got to cut off your thread while you're sewing, and all of a sudden you've stabbed yourself with the scissors. I don't carry a thread cutter per se because I like to be able to snip in case I have to snip something else besides thread. I just don't like those thread cutters. They look scary to me. I don't know. If you use a thread cutter, more power to you. It's probably more portable. But I understand you can't take them on planes, whereas I can take my scissors on a plane. But again, to each their own. Whatever you use that works best for you. I don't. But if you find them better, please do. I mean, I guess as you're driving along and if you got to cut a thread, they might be better. But I like having scissors, and then can you imagine I hit a bump and all of a sudden I've stabbed myself, or God forbid there's an accident and I've stabbed myself along with anything else that happens in the accident? I know, we're getting depressing here. But I'm almost done. All right, we're just going to finish that. Like I said, you go right through. Let me put that there. That's my seam allowance, but you're going to end at the top here of the wedge. So you go right through the seam allowance. I do a little back stitch just to hold it there and tie it off. And you're going to do this for each of 4 sets of wedges. So you're going to do 8 of them, 2 on a side. And that's it. You just tie it off. I told you this one was easy. This one's easy, easy. And then you just, so it looks like that. Yes, it sticks out from the end there, and you have this piece sticking up. And that's how it's supposed to look. So don't worry about it. It is exactly supposed to look that way. Okay? You're basically adding another piece to the wedges, to your arcs, your rings. And I know why they don't do this beforehand when you're sewing your rings. You probably could, but then you'd have to remember to center this piece on your wedges and not the end pieces. And when you're folding and marking to get the curve in there, that might mess you up. So it's better, actually, I think, to do it this way, where you have this piece already sewn and you just know this is going to stick out. Okay? So that's it for this week of this edition of Legal Quilt. And I'm looking ahead. I really am going to look this time, okay? And it does say, let's see, we did that part. Using a set with right size, it definitely says melon patches next time, all right? So next time I'm going to show you how to cut the melon patches. We're going to cut the melon patches and then we're going to sew them, okay? And we are trucking along. So, but that's it for this edition. Have a safe and glorious 4th of July for my American listeners. For anybody in the UK, don't forget to vote. It is an election there. Same in France, in case anybody in France is listening to this. Yours is starts, I think, July 3rd. Or no, it starts the 30th. So tomorrow, good luck in France. And don't forget to support all my works. If you want to buy me a coffee so I can keep making these videos, the link will be in the show notes. If you want to buy something, the website will be in the show notes. Until then, again, have a safe and happy 4th, and I will see you next time. I lost my clicker.